Welcome to another installment of GROSSBUSTERS Reviews. Last night I went and saw the new Tim Burton movie, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. And my first thought was, why does that title sound so familiar? Ah yes, now I remember. Wait, but didn't they already make a movie about this once before? Oh, that was something completely different? My bad. In order to do my job of giving you full disclosure of what to expect in this movie, I do have to issue a little bit of a spoiler warning. I'm not one to give spoilers typically, but with this movie I have to give you some of the details so you know exactly what you're walking into. Because honestly, the trailers don't do it justice whatsoever, and there's a whole lot more to this movie than what's being shown in the trailers, that's for sure. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children is based on a novel series of the same title. I think anybody walking out of this movie is going to realize that Tim Burton was probably the best fit to direct a movie like this. Whether you read the books or not, if the book was anything like the movie, it was definitely right up Tim Burton's alley. There's no denying that whatsoever. So to start with, Miss Peregrine is played by Ava Green, and which I have to say, Ava Green stole the show as far as acting goes in this movie. Not that there was a whole lot of competition, to be honest, but Ava Green did a really good job, I'll say that much. So Miss Peregrine is what they call an inbreed, and an inbreed is a protector of these peculiar children, and they have the power to transform into a bird. Hence the Miss Peregrine, because she turns into a peregrine falcon. But their main power is that they're able to manipulate time. And that's how they protect the children, by manipulating time, which I'll explain a little bit more in just a second. So this is where the spoiler alert comes in, because this is kind of the main point of the movie. This is a big plot point of the movie. There's a group of peculiars that have defected. And they're led by Samuel L. Jackson, and they've tried to become more powerful by harnessing the power of one of these inbreeds like Miss Peregrine. So Samuel L. Jackson sets up this experiment, and there's a group of other adult peculiars that are trying to become more powerful by going through this experiment. Needless to say, the experiment goes wrong. All of them turn into these monsters, and the only way for the monsters to go back to their human form and maintain being a human is by eating the eyeballs of peculiar children. So this is where the inbreed's power of manipulating time comes in, because these monsters are coming after the monsters are called hologhasts, by the way. And the hologhasts and Samuel L. Jackson and his little crew are out to get the peculiar children for their eyeballs. So the inbreeds protect the children by hiding these time loops all over the world. And what they do is they find a day that's considered safe, and at the end of the day, the inbreed or Miss Peregrine will reset the day, and they constantly live the same 24 hours over and over and over. So Miss Peregrine's school is stuck in a day from 1942 or 1943, I believe. So to describe it best, it kind of turns into a Tim Burton version of Groundhog's Day. Going into this movie myself, I didn't really want to see this movie. I'm not going to lie. I saw the trailers and I was like, I'm not really excited about going to see this movie, but I know I'm going to have somebody ask me, what is this movie about? I'm going to have a parent ask me, is this movie okay for my kids? So I took one for the team, and I decided to go see this new Tim Burton movie. I'm not going to lie, this movie actually kind of surprised me for the first half. So going in not wanting to like this movie, not knowing what to expect, I was quite surprised. The first half, there wasn't a whole lot of weird stuff going. There was a little bit of weird stuff, but it wasn't like over the top weird stuff. And the first half of the movie, they were leading me along like, okay, this has some potential to be a good movie. Well, then in the middle, we hit the brakes and everything takes a sharp turn into a typical Tim Burton movie. I mean, this movie gets really weird really fast, and like it was uncomfortable almost. Like, did I just see that? Is this for real? Like, there's little kids in this movie theater. They're gonna have nightmares now. I went with a buddy of mine, and we're grown men, and I think we both jumped a couple of times, to be quite honest. Another thing I noticed that I had to ask my buddy after the movie, I said, was it just me, or did the acting seem to get worse as the movie progressed? And he noticed it as well. And I mean, like, even Samuel L. Jackson, his performance just goes from like being okay to just getting worse. Like, I'm just here to get a paycheck. It was really weird. Like, the whole cast, just honestly just got progressively worse as the movie went on. I said, well, maybe they filmed the ending first and then they went and filmed the beginning. I couldn't figure it out, but it got really weird. Again, trying not to give you every detail of the movie and ruin some things for you. The movie builds to this weird climax to where there's this big battle between the hologas and like this Jason and the Argonauts style skeleton army, and it just comes across as really weird, completely unenthusiastic. Even like the real people involved in the scene are just standing there like, oh, 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 and it just was like nobody. Granted, they were probably looking at like floating tennis balls or something, but I mean, for crying out loud, I could have done a better job acting. And this fight takes place in present day now, and there's this weird like techno EDM music all of a sudden. So most of the movie is taking place in the 40s, and now you jump to present day, and there's this weird techno EDM music that doesn't fit in with the rest of the movie whatsoever, and it's just like a wall of noise coming at you during this weird fight scene, and I was just sitting there like, I'm just completely unimpressed with this right now. And if I was going to go to the bathroom, this would be the point where I should get up and go to the bathroom. And that's the climax of the movie. And now I present the main event of GROSSBUSTERS Reviews, the Parental Advisory Review. I have to start out by saying this movie is one of the exact reasons why I started this channel in the first place. So, I do this portion of the review specifically for parents in mind, so that you know exactly what you're walking into before paying to go see these movies. So Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children is rated PG-13 for intense sequences of fantasy, action, and violence, and peril. Yes, it has all of those. It has a little bit of language, not much language in it, but the nightmares that any kid will walk away from this movie will haunt them for the rest of their lives, I think. I have a breakdown of the language, so let me run through that real quick. And again, I will say, I'll preface this with, I'm a youth pastor, so my posts are always going to be G-rated as well, and that's what I like to call job security for me, and being safe for you, whoever wants to see this review. So there are 2 D words, there were 2 HE double hockey sticks, 1 GD, and 4 craps. There was also, this is the exact quotes of how they said these words, D-bag, and there's a play on a cuss word where he says, "What the hello?" So there was that. That's all the language in the movie, so not a whole lot. And then there were a couple of scenes where some guys are drinking some beers. Just to let you know, that's all in the movie as far as that goes. So now we jump into the, what they call it, intense sequences of fantasy, action, and violence, and peril. Okay, so again, I have to put a spoiler alert on this portion because there's a few details that are going to give a few things away. The first red flag comes towards the beginning. It's not terrible, but Jake he rushes home to make sure his grandfather's okay. uh, finds that somebody's broke into the house and can't find his grandfather anywhere. He follows a trail out the back door into the woods and finds his grandfather laying face down in the woods. So Jake walks up and rolls him over and sees that his eyeballs are missing. Um, so that was kind of the first point where I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird for a kid's movie. So then it plays out okay for quite a while, and then we start meeting the kids at Miss Peregrine's home. And one of the kids named is Enoch. And I guess Enoch's power is that he can bring things to life. And so what he does is he takes hearts and puts them into things. Like he can put a heart into a human, he can put a heart into a doll, he can put a heart into a statue, whatever the case may be, he can bring things to life by putting these hearts in them. And when I say heart, I mean like a realistic little heart. It's not like a little Valentine's heart, Justin Bieber heart or anything. It's a real little bloody heart that he takes out and puts into things. So the first time we see this power, Enoch puts these hearts into these like Frankenstein dolls that he's stitched together and stuff. And they're these creepy dolls like from Toy Story, like what Sid used to do. But they're mixed with animal parts. Like one of the dolls has like chicken legs, the other one has a doll head on a crab, and then he brings them to life, and then they like fight to the death on the table like battle bots. But like when I say fight to the death, it was kind of awkward and uncomfortable because they're like stabbing each other with butcher knives, they're dismembering each other. It was kind of uncomfortable. I was looking around like going, are there little kids in here? Because this is kind of weird now. And this is kind of the point where the movie, you start to see this turn in the movie that I was talking about. Later, Enoch tells Jake, hey, Jake, you haven't met Victor yet. So he's like, well, who's Victor? He says, well, let me introduce you to him. So he takes him up to a bedroom in the house and sees there's this kid laying on a bed. And you see that the kid has no eyeballs and the kid is dead. Well, Enoch puts a heart in him and Victor sits up in the bed. And he's still dead. And it's really weird, but he starts working Victor like a puppet, like a ventriloquist thing or something. And so that was kind of creepy. Oh, and one more thing they forgot to include on their PG-13 listing. This movie is chock full of nudity. You might not catch it, but there's this little kid running around that's invisible, and they're constantly having to tell him to put clothes on. So in case you didn't catch that, I was just kidding. You don't see anything. He's invisible. So going back to the hologas monsters that I mentioned previously, this is the point of the movie where it starts to take a weird turn. Once these things are introduced, I mean, it happens fast. They show the monsters, they show them transform into the monsters, and then it just cuts to them like chowing down on platters full of eyeballs. And I don't mean like little like rubber ball looking eyeballs. I mean like eyeballs with like tendons hanging from them and stuff, like platters full of them, and they're just digging in with forks and just chowing down on this plate full of eyeballs. So that was really weird, I'm not gonna lie, to be thrown into this movie all of a sudden. Now I don't know how these hologas are described in the book, but I think it's safe to assume that the pitch to creative went something like this. So for the hologas, I'm envisioning them to be these really tall, skinny, faceless creatures. Oh, so sort of like Slender Man. No, 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 no. This is different. This recently came to me in a dream of a nightmare, and he's wearing a suit and tie. Okay, that's literally Slender Man. Well, what if he had these tentacles that could come out and grab you? Really? And he stalks little children, but they can't see him. You be the judge. So to close this out, I have to say, when the movie was over, I had a long discussion with my buddy that went and saw it with me, but our first thought after the movie ended was, who is this movie for? It's clearly not for kids. Adults aren't really going to be interested in this. Like, you're aiming for a very small demographic of maybe teens are probably going to be more inclined to see this, and like hardcore Tim Burton fans, which maybe Tim Burton's still a thing. I don't really know. It was way too scary for kids. I think PG-13 was an appropriate rating for this, but I mean, again, I do these reviews for parents' benefits. It is completely up to you and your discretion as to what you feel is appropriate for your child. I wouldn't recommend taking kids to go see this at all. I think kids younger than 13 probably shouldn't see this movie. Maybe kids 13 can handle this. That's completely up to you as a parent as to what your child can handle. If you're a fan of Tim Burton, jump on this one, I guess. Have a good time. But as for the average person, you're going to get halfway through this movie and then you're going to be stuck there for the second half. And that was kind of the experience I had with it anyways. I hope this review was helpful for you, parents especially. This is why I do these reviews, so you can take advantage of it as a tool to help with your decision in going to see this movie or not. So, until next time, see ya!